The Central African Republic is in the grips of humanitarian crisis with no end in sight. Thousands of people displaced from their homes by years of violence are now either internally displaced or living as refugees in neighboring countries. And they are all heavily dependent on humanitarian assistance. In the past week alone, at least 21 people were killed and 135 others injured in the worst outbreak of violence in years. The country descended into turmoil after mainly Muslim Seleka rebels ousted President Francois Bozize in 2013, provoking retaliation killings by anti-Balaka militias drawn largely from Christian communities. Self-styled Muslim self-defense groups sprung up, claiming to protect the Muslim civilians concentrated there from ethnic cleansing. The United Nations in the CAR accuses both groups of extortion and violence against civilians. Now, several non-governmental organizations are working to help the people of the CAR. To tell us more about what that work involves, I'm joined in studio by Sam Garza, Vice President of Rooti-Centrafrique. Mr. Garza, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
So first, the name is a little interesting. Why?
Rooti-Centrafrique, it means the roots of Central Africa.
Great. Now, tell us exactly what you do. We know that there have been international organizations there, including the United Nations, trying to help the thousands of Central Africans who are either displaced within the country or in neighboring countries. What is it that your organization wants to do there or is doing there?
So we're an organization that was founded by Central Africans. I mean, our organization is spread around the world, and there's many Central Africans around the world that look at this crisis and they see, you know, it started out as a sectarian war between Muslims and Christians, but over time it's translated into a war of economic stimulus, you know, economic opportunity, and that's what our organization is about. You know, we're looking to stimulate, be the private sector, or to do something in the private sector to create economic stimulus in the country. You know, we have a contract with the Central African Ministry of Habitat to build 500 socioeconomic homes. And along with that, we're going to be building a brick manufacturing plant. And in parallel with that, we also have a learning center that we have planned to build in Bangui. So we can actually train these workers to actually start building their own homes. And so that in partnership with our UNHCR partners, we have plans to start bringing some of those refugees back into Bangui so they can repatriate and where they can have jobs.
So first, what you're saying you're doing is the kind of work that is done in a process of recovery of a country, which requires some level of stability. Are the conditions in the country ripe for that kind of level of stable development?
You know, many people are looking at the government to create jobs. And we all know that the government's not in the position to create jobs. You know, this is where the private sector comes in to start stimulating that economy. You know, and if that never happens, then the insecurity will never subside.
So what's your target here? I mean, we mentioned that there are people who are living in refugee camps outside of the country and those who are displaced within the country. So when you go in right now, who are you talking to? Who are you working with?
We are made up of 4 NGOs on the ground. And our Vice President of Operations in Bangui, Mr. Gideon Goti, he's actually he's the coordinator for humanitarian relief efforts in Bangui. And so we have capacity on the ground to actually start implementing these programs.
Yeah. So when you start implementing those programs, are you looking at, you know, helping individuals, or do you go to a community and encourage them to come together in some kind of outfit that helps to generate whatever funding or programs to that particular area?
We have to start small. And, you know, this is where this learning center comes in. You know, we can only build as big as we move, you know, and so there's nobody else doing this. And so we're pioneering the effort. And we've been called from many professionals around the world that are Central African citizens saying, lead the charge, and once you start moving, we will start moving too. And so we want to create that snowball effect.
So you're creating skills, you're talking about.
We are creating skills.
Learning center.
The learning center will create skills, vocational training for the construction effort, also working with the Chamber of Commerce there in the city to fill the gap. There's a gap, there's a huge gap there, and it's, you know, the skills gap. And so that's what this learning center is going to do.
So this is not the kind of humanitarian assistance which is kind of just parachuting in there, giving people food and certain immediate assistance. You're talking about a kind of a long-term programs which help these people to become self-reliant. Is that what you're
Absolutely. That's what we want to do. We don't want to be a program of one-and-done program. We want to actually start create economic stimulus. That way it starts solving and creates long-term solutions. You know, our motto is together we can. We can't do this alone. We need international donors. We need the private sector to come together. We need the professionals that actually have gone out left the country for one reason or another to come back in to start creating that opportunity. And then only then will you also start getting some semblance of normality.
Now, the people are suffering quite a bit. Are those in refugee camps or in IDPs? They're still there. There's a reason why they're not going back to their homes. How do you help them? How do you convince them to go back?
So we want to start where it's secure in the city of Bangui.
Yeah.
And as that starts, as people start to see some movement, it's a cascading effect.
And so you're saying in Bangui, it is stable and peaceful enough for you to run your operations and to use that as a way to pull in back people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How about those other areas far-flung from the city of Bangui, where most people come from? Because we're talking about people want to go back to their rural home, to their neighborhoods, not necessarily to Bangui.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is you know, we went out to Cameroon, to the eastern region. We spoke to a lot of refugees, and the only thing they want is to go back home. But, you know, one thing we tell them is when you go back home, there's no economic stability. There's no homes to go back to. And so how can we help as an organization? What's feasible? What can we implement? And that's where it's safe. You know, we have our operations on the ground, Mr. Goatee, and you know, he gives us reports every day. You know, there was a recent PK5 where they went into the PK5 neighborhood and they tried to clean out, you know, the guns there. But, you know, you know, the thing is here in the West, we actually hear about the bad things. We never really hear about the day-to-day, you know, life, you know. And when I went to Cameroon, I noticed that people are just like me. They go to work every day and they come home. They're so peaceful. It's such a docile society. And you know, whenever you allow a mindset of division to take root, it gets into the culture, you know. Yeah. And so that's one thing we want to curb. We want to be that semblance of peace and stability.
And we really hope there will be peace in Central African Republic. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Garza, for coming on today and sharing those kind of assessments with us.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing, and for people to visit our website, it's www.rooti-centrafrique.org to find out a little bit more information about us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, and that's Sam Garza, who is the Vice President, Rooti-Centrafrique.